Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of Covendom. I'm Brian Cain, and this is my lovely co-host, Levi Smith.
It's Levi Rowland. Last name's fine.
So we're going to tell you a little bit about what the series is going to be doing and ourselves. So we'll start out with myself. My name is Brian Cain. I am the co-owner of Warlocks Inc., a company that consists of Hex and Omen stores in Salem, Massachusetts and New Orleans. We also host 2 annual festivals, the Festival of the Dead and the Witches Ball in Salem and Hex Fest here in New Orleans in August. I am an Alexandrian high priest of the Coven of New Orleans. I don't know what else is there about me. I just started belly dancing classes, so now I'm a premier belly dancer, I guess. Occultist. I'm definitely an occultist. I suppose you could say I'm a bit of a ceremonial magician, but I don't usually call myself that because they seem very desperate. Witchcraft is really my first passion, not so much about asking for things as going for what I want, obtaining it. Levi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I feel like this is like either going to come off like Alcoholics Anonymous or like a dating.
Not yet.
Not yet. We're getting there. Like I'm a Cancer. I like long walks on the beach. I don't. No, my name is Levi Rowland. I'm in the New Orleans Coven as well, priest of Alexandrian Witchcraft. I'm also in the non-witch world, a language teacher, an interpreter. I would use the word occultist too. No problem with that. I tend to focus a lot on things like Hermetic Kabbalah, the Western occult tradition, all of that. Yeah, and we're going to talk about sex and witchcraft. Big fan.
Yes, tonight's topic is going to be sex in witchcraft. 2 of my favorite things, sex and witchcraft, but there's something not right here.
I can guess.
Yeah, my 3rd favorite thing. I feel very uncomfortable. I don't know if I can go on. I think I might have brought something.
I can already tell.
Our producer, my husband, is trying to... We're probably going to have some technical difficulties tonight because it is our first show. That's all right. I brought Levi a little present. We figured out in Portugal that he was a huge fan.
It's not even airing.
Port wine. It's not airing. What do you mean?
I don't know what's happening here.
It says it's airing. It's live.
Yeah, we're here.
There's people. They're watching. Here, open this.
Oh my God.
Somebody say something in chat if you're watching so that we know we're not just talking to ourselves. Well, Levi's opening that. I'm going to go ahead.
There were covens in Europe. That's what they're called. The congregation. Covens in Europe, in America, and in Australia, and they have one right here. That whole bunch. The parties with the singing and the flute and the chanting. Those are esbats or Sabbaths or whatever
don't get
they're called.
excited, huh?
Read what they do, Guy. They use blood in their rituals, and the blood that has the most power is baby's blood.
See, look, he even brought a corkscrew. Hail Satan. Wow. Like, it's like Mary Poppins, but if she was an alcoholic. Like, just, here's your wine thing. It came out of my purse. Okay. It's not a bad sign at all. But what goes on in your life?
It is. We're getting chat on the broadcasting.
Yes, hey, people.
What is this thing called? I kind of keep forgetting.
This is Crowdcast.
Crowdcast. Crowdcast is going through. We've got chat on Crowdcast. Don't know if it's streaming to Facebook or YouTube right now. Like I said, it's our first show, so Christian's working on that if it's not. However, we will be interacting on Crowdcast, so if you are watching from Facebook or YouTube and you wish to interact, go to the link if there's one provided, and
yes,
you can get to the chat here if you wish to interact with us live, where we will be answering questions, hopefully taking a couple of video callers. How you doing with that wine there?
It's coming along. Also, if you are in the British Traditional Witchcraft group on Facebook, the link to Crowdcast is in the comments and not the description.
Oh, no.
Oh, he's not going to drink for it. I forgot.
There are 2 of us. Okay. I brought Ménage à Trois in honor of the show tonight.
Cheap
because,
wine.
You know, sometimes like you do. It is actually cheaper than that.
I know. Thank you for the port.
I'll open this myself. I like port wine, but it's more of a dessert wine with cheese. But Levi
It's
can't
supposed to be a
resist
dessert wine, but then when you're
or
hanging out with witches in Portugal,
Riesling.
you just drink the whole bottle.
We loved the witches in Portugal.
We did. Very nice.
We were there for the Grand Sabbat, Alexandrian Grand Sabbat, and in a beautiful little place called Sintra. And well, the people were beautiful, the food was beautiful, the wine was beautiful, the witches were beautiful. It was I fell in love, didn't you?
Oh, I love that country. Great wine, great food, great people.
Talking about love, Levi, why don't we go ahead and get you to pull the tarot card of the day?
Shall we?
If you choose to be one of our video callers, Levi will also pull a card for you and give you a one-card reading.
And usually I charge for this. Like I'm
Usually
a
he
high-class
does.
escort, okay?
Yes.
Like, you come down to Hex, you can pay for it.
Here we go.
Let's
My
see what
teeth
the
will be
tarot card
purple by the
is.
end of this episode.
So we're using the Hermetic
I have a lot
Tarot
of room.
today. How appropriate,
Hermetic Tarot.
right? Black and white. Very aesthetically pleasing. You give it a cut.
Try not to spill wine on all this equipment.
You can also tell them to crowdcast.io as in /Hex
Right. Yeah, and if you want to watch us on Crowdcast, it is crowdcast.io. I as in icicle, O as in Ohio. Crowdcast.io/Hex Education. So this does not bode well for us because
This isn't for us, this is for everyone.
For everyone. Ten of Swords. Ten of Swords. If you use the Rider Waite, it's that lovely one where the man is. stabbed to
Everyone
death
stay
on
in
the
your
beach.
house today.
Yeah.
Stay in, lock your doors. Don't go
Mercury
tonight.
retrograde, right? That's a thing. People care about that. No, Ten of Swords. So in the Hermetic Tarot called the Lord of Ruin. Great title. Ten of Swords. I don't know what else. Just absolute darkness, destruction, hatred, ruin,
Apocalyptic.
apocalyptic.
I can't drink
backstabbing.
this yet. Hold on.
Cheers.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
All right. Let's go on and give a little bit of statement about tonight's topic, sex and witchcraft. This is a very vast topic. It's also a topic that I think is avoided by most individuals. I think people forget that witchcraft, the religious side of witchcraft, the religion of witchcraft, originates as a fertility cult. So a lot of what we do centers around polarity, lovemaking, procreation, fertility for men, crops, animals. These days, we are focused more on the fertility of mind and the fertility of spirit, the fertility of our magic, than we are trying to make babies. However, the natural world is in continued need of pollinization. We need the bees to be fertile. We need the animals to be fertile. We need the trees to be more fertile now than ever because this planet's trying to survive. So part of the reason witchcraft has been tied to environmentalism is because of its fertility-based concepts. I think nowadays you find a lot of people who, perhaps because they're not focusing on the religious side of witchcraft, they sort of forget that this is what the 8 Sabbats are about. This is what the wheel of the year is. It's why we celebrate Halloween. It's why we celebrate May Day and those other rituals. It's not just to be religious. It's because we're actually acknowledging the turning seasons, and we are paying homage to something our ancestors once did, the movement of the sun and the moon and the seasons, and tuning ourselves with that. There's an old witchcraft legend. I don't know how old it was. It might be from the 1950s. I don't know. But there's an old legend that if witches, that's my husband playing with toys, if witches ever stop working the Sabbats, the wheel will stop turning. It's an old legend that if there's not at least one group of witches on Earth turning the wheel, the seasons will turn upside down. It will be the end of the natural world. Did you need something, Christian?
They said you need to be closer to the mic.
Oh, can you not hear me? I'm like right up. I'm eating it, so I don't know how I can.
I don't know what to tell you.
Hello. Blessed be, Rosie. Blessed be.
Yes, blessed be. We love you.
So, we've got lots to cover tonight. I want to cover, not only the fertility aspect, but our ethics, the pros and cons, what we think about it. Levi, I don't know. What's your spiel on this topic?
Spiel on sex. Be careful, kids. No.
I drink some of this here wine.
Yeah, you had all that talking. I just let him talk. I have wine. I've just been sipping it. These people got some money, so they got that nice aged tawny port. It's good. No, sex and witchcraft, inseparable. I think witchcraft lies in a very unique place because there's two sort of extremes about sexuality that witchcraft's able to avoid. The first is conservative religious sexuality. We all know what we're talking about with that. You know, the sort of Mormon, Roman Catholic, sort of Orthodox Jewish obsession with perfection of the body and, you know, very, very big on taboos or whatever. And then you have like secular humanist sexuality where it's devoid of spirituality. It's just exchanging bodily fluids and stuff like that. And there's no actual magic involved or spirituality. So I think we kind of like live in the middle where it's both. We're not prudes, but we're also not robots.
No, I think that the ethical side of witchcraft, is in intent. That's where our ethics come from, because we are creatures of magic, so to speak. We're priests of that light. Our intent, it's the human intent that we really look at as far as ethics and morals. And sex is a natural state of being. We are created as sexual creatures. What is it? House of Cards says everything in life is about sex, except sex. That's about power. Yeah.
Sex is just about power.
It's about power.
God help us.
Yes. Sorry, Christian's trying to work out some of the other things. Who can't hear me? Because no one here says the same.
Okay, I'll be louder. I can be louder.
Oh, it's him.
All right. It's me. It's always me. I'm always.
So it's me. It's like, I thought I was pretty loud.
Say something.
Something.
Which of you is not coming through me? Okay, so
That's me.
you up.
All right, we're good now.
Yes.
Sorry, working out the bugs. This is all very
Bug, it's called.
new, fancy equipment. Christian's literal.
Very.
Anywho, back to the show. Levi, shall we ask each other some questions to get this rolling?
Oh God.
I'll let you go first, and don't peek at my sheet.
I won't peek at your questions. So a question I thought would be important to start with is, we talk a lot in witchcraft, and if you're reading books about witchcraft or anything like that, about the great rite or the sacred marriage or sex in the circle. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions that people have about that?
I think the biggest misconception people have about that is that they know anything about it at all. I think that it's been published. People have got the idea of what it is. It is a man and it's a woman who possibly are engaging in, ritual intercourse. If you actually study the history of modern witchcraft and you study, what the elders have said about this, this is something that does not necessarily have to take place for the great rite to be completed. There are different ways of doing it. It is a magical ritual, so therefore we are not as concerned with the mundane side of it. Everything we do, is ritual and symbolic, and what's important is it has power behind it. So you can have sex with someone and not have any power behind it. Doesn't mean it's not going to be enjoyable, but that doesn't necessarily make it witchcraft. It's the power behind it that makes it witchcraft. In Alexandrian craft, I will say that when the great rite happens, it's between those two individuals, and it's not anyone else's business, but it's never required and it's never expected. No one is ever required or expected to have sex for initiation, for any ritual, or for any reason within the tradition of witchcraft. Doreen Valiente said in Gardiner's Bricket Wood Coven she'd never known it to be an actual physical act. It was always symbolic. So nowadays you get all these people out there who'll say, well, if you're Gardinerian, you really have to do the great rite. Or if you're Alexandrian, you really have to do the great rite. You're never required to have sex in witchcraft. It's not a requirement. It does happen, but it is between those two individuals, and the way we look at it is it's sacred. And because it's so sacred, we don't ask. We don't tell. So if two people go into the ritual and they do it symbolically, it's just as sacred as if they do it literally, so why would we ask? You know, in one sense, you could be trying to, you know, some people might try to make the argument of, we did it in truth, so it was more magical. Having sexual intercourse does not make it more magical. It being more magical makes it more magical. So you could have a symbolic great rite that is more powerful than a physical one, and you can have a physical one that's more powerful than a symbolic one. It's whether or not the power is actually there. And only those two individuals and the gods know if that power was really there. But it's never required.
And the neighbors, if you're good at it.
And the neighbors, if you're good at it. Good
Hopefully.
question, Levi. I've got one for you. It's my turn.
Okay.
Don't peek at my question.
I'm not peeking.
He is a
I
peeker.
read them all. I'm always a peeker. I've already.
He said, Levi, have you ever been aroused in a magic circle?
Yeah, all the time. Oh my God, yes. Like, witchcraft is sexy. I mean, it's sexual. You're talking about sex. You're looking at things as a fertility religion. And something that somebody said in the chat right here, I think is important. The sexual aspect of witchcraft is in no way diminished by sexual orientation, which I agree with. It has nothing to do with like who you're attracted to or that you want to be with somebody sexually. It's literally just the fertility, the sexuality. It's palpable. It's present. It's almost like there are these videos, for example, that you can watch on YouTube of flowers blooming.
I keep looking at that.
I know. I keep looking at the screen too instead of at the.
Sorry, we're not
the imaginary people.
Yes, we see you.
Not that you're real. I
We
understand.
see you.
We see you.
See you, Rosie.
But no, it's like those videos of those flowers blooming that people post a lot because of how beautiful they are. They're very sexual. And a lot of nature, if you really look at it, is extremely sexual. And witchcraft is the same way. So you're aroused, but you're not. It's very homosexual, heterosexual, bisexual.
Sex.
It doesn't matter. Like it's just the sexual nature of it comes through very strongly. So yeah, I have.
The only thing I like more than wine is sex. It's true. I am a Taurus.
Okay, wow.
So ask me the question. Do we have any questions in here yet? You can ask questions on the chat and Levi will get it. If you're on Crowdcast.
If you're on Crowdcast, we'll be able to answer
We'll get a notification and you can ask a question of me and Levi, or we could both answer. We don't have any rules about this. Like I said, we're going to invite a couple. We don't know how many people are even watching. We're going to invite a couple people to maybe do video call-ins if we can figure out how to do it.
Sure.
But we want to get through some of the material first, since we've got about an hour or so left. And we're way too sober for this. We need to get
I'm very disappointed in the amount of red wine that's in my body right now. Shit. Okay, big gulps. And this is like brandy.
Yeah.
He found the buttons. Everybody, he found the buttons.
They let me have the buttons.
No,
Big
the
mistake.
only button I care about on this entire panel is this one. Oh, the dark one. Black Phillip. Okay, calm down. Okay, a question. Okay, one that really came to my mind that I think is interesting is, how do you feel about people who might take the fertility aspect of, because we are very open and honest about the fact that when we talk about fertility, we're talking about growth of self, growth of life, money, power, love, happiness, all of those things that we want to increase. How would you feel about somebody who took it more literally and they wanted to create a child or literally continue life with a magic ritual, like take it the literal old school way?
Well, funny enough, this has been done. There's actually a modern myth right now. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but there's a modern myth that there's a group, and I don't know if this is literally true, but there's a modern myth that there's a particular line of initiates who's trying to bring the goddess back through the great rite by having her incarnate into a female child. I think it's probably nonsense.
Love that. It's like some reverse antichrist.
Yes, but I think it's probably not true. But I have heard this from initiates that there's a certain line that's trying to do that.
Big fan.
There have also been occultists who've made magical spirit children. I believe
like
Alex and Aleister Crowley both experimented with moon children. I don't think you can take it too literally. You're talking about magic making magic. So, if I was in the business of procreating human beings,
which he's not. I
suppose I probably would, possibly be diabolical about it, but I'm not, so it doesn't matter. I don't know. I suppose it would be much better, what is it, that line off of the new American Horror Story, you know, the blonde girl, what is her name? The cute one that goes to hell.
The cute one that goes to hell. Teresa? What is it?
Well, I don't know. She says something along the lines, she's like, I can't have children because if they weren't cool, I know I wouldn't love them.
Wow.
You know, I think I would feel like that. I think if I had
no pressure on us.
If I had a child that was, I don't know, embarrassing or something, I think I would not be a very good parent. So that's not what the universe intended me to be for.
No, they're not. If your parents literally like, you're not cool enough, so I'm not showing up to the game.
No, I mean, that's why actually, we would just send them off to a boarding school, wouldn't we?
Well, they've got the money for that. I mean, the rest of us just don't show up to the game.
I mean, I would.
And they're like, they're in Switzerland because
give it my all. I just wouldn't want to have to spend time with it.
God in hell, Brian.
Fertility. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
This is actually kind of good. Well, this actually goes into something we were already talking about. Do seekers and non-initiates graft onto us pre-established taboos regarding sexuality, and its ethics? Do you think people come into the craft or come into the world of the occult with morals and dogma from Christianity or other traditions, and they try to graft those morals onto us? Do you feel there's a difference?
I have a very specific opinion about this. Yes, but I actually think it goes the other way too. I think that we get a lot of people historically who did bring that in, and they got very churchy. I think this is why you see some homophobia in the original Gardnerian writings where they're like, you know, it is there. So I do think that is some pre-Christian sort of like, or they're not pre-Christian, but Christian pre-conversion. Have another cherry, darling, which is a beast. But no, I think that nowadays we actually, I think, dangerously have the opposite sometimes, where we're getting people who are rebelling and they only want their witchcraft to be a rebellion. You know, they want it to be orgies all the time. And I mean, not that there's not a place
Levi,
for that.
stop talking about me. It's really rude.
I know, it's very rude to talk about people's hobbies when they're present, right? But, you know, God in hell, the truth of that though. But no, all joking aside, I think we're actually getting people who are the problem. Like in the OTO, I have a couple of friends who have told me that they have to weed people out because they get people.
We were talking about witchcraft.
Oh God, it's not a pissing contest, Brian. Like but they get people a lot because of Crowley they're there for too much rebellion. It's like, I want somebody who is unshackled from their Christianity. And if you are completely here only to have the sacred orgy and you don't care about the work at all, then you're just as bad as if you were coming in and obsessing about sexual morality. You're the same thing. You're still shackled by your Christianity. You just don't realize it. So I think we get both, actually. I think we get both extremes.
Well, that's why, you know, with the scourging that Alex at one point replaced the scourge with the silk scourge, because he had a couple individuals that he knew were there for kinks.
Yep.
So to get rid of them, he said, you know, this isn't going to work for you, and they left. That's the story, anyway. Yeah, I agree. There's the pendulum sometimes goes too far left or too far right. That's absolutely the human way. All right, it's your turn now.
I like this comment here.
We have a question.
It's not a question, but it's a comment. I think we assume too much about the literal/figurative beliefs of ancient peoples and their naivety regarding ritual sex. I agree with that. Like, I think we need to always keep in mind that it was not until very modern times that we even understood as a species how children were made. All the way up until, in some places, the 1800s, they thought that women were just ovens and the entire soul of a child was in sperm, and that women were just incubators. You know, that's problematic. And the fact that we believed that and it shaped belief in entire cultures for a long time. So I agree with that comment. I think that sexuality is complicated, and we used to have very, very different beliefs about it than we do now.
Well, there's another thing that I think is
more wine.
Another thing that's misunderstood is that you go to. I'll just use Greek civilization as an example. In standard Greek civilization, they're actually kind of a little sexually uptight. This is why they have so many virgin goddesses. You know, they're
Diana,
the culture
Athena,
that actually Artemis.
Well, Artemis.
They're for a teacher, you sure get it off.
How dare you?
Artemis, Athena, Hestia. You know, they had lots of virgin goddesses because they were actually uptight about female sexuality. However, the initiatory cults, this is where the true education took place. You know, and that's where the awareness really came into being. I think that inside a lot of the ancient initiatory cults, they actually had a lot of information and philosophy and concepts that were not being shared with everyone. There's a difference between being an initiate of a Greek mystery cult and just being a part of standard state Greek religion.
Yeah, completely.
So,
afterlife, sexuality,
yeah, I
all
think
of it.
that knowledge was once held in the hands of priesthood. There weren't doctors, there weren't judges. Priesthood were all of those things. So, a lot of times that's where it had. So I think when in a higher religious context, static ritual, I think that they had a great knowledge of how it worked. I think that the primordial god and goddess that we draw from, even though that is a bit of, modern myth, I think that there's a truth to it too. I think that there were people who did know how it worked. Animals get it. I think we sometimes forget that we, as a modern species, have been separated from our instincts, but our ancestors were not. They weren't distracted by computers. They weren't distracted by TV. They weren't distracted by concrete. They were living the rhythms of nature, and they saw, I think they knew more than we think they did. So
I think that's valid.
I agree and disagree.
I agree. I mean, I do think they probably knew more than we do, but the misogyny that was really, really embedded.
We've plummeted ourselves into the dark ages on numerous occasions.
You're not wrong.
We've got flat earthers now. How do you feel about flat earthers, Levi?
I feel the same way about them than I do about anti-vaxxers. Bye, girl.
So weird. I think it's, whose turn is it?
I don't know. I'm on my second glass, and this is a lot stronger than your wine because it has the same alcohol content as brandy.
Oh, because we just brought one of those up. This isn't showing in YouTube, just FYI.
Yeah,
they're saying.
Christian knows, so we're working
on it.
And it's fine.
It may not make it this time. We don't know. This is the first official show we've done. Christian and Kirk are going to be doing their show, but me and Levi are the guinea pigs.
But thank you for the shout out.
For the technology. Hopefully this can be put on YouTube later. I don't know how that works. If not, it is what it is.
Ask me one. I think you did anyway, but do it anyway.
Well, earlier you were talking about witchcraft orgies without saying too much. What do you think about them?
I mean, what is it Maxine says in the sacred orgy?
We're all cats in the dark,
right? And it's like the French say, La nuit les chats sont gris. At night, all cats are gray. Do I think... Wait, what is the question? Orgies, yes or no?
What do you think about the modern myths and the truth? Witchcraft orgies. What do you think of the concept of it? What do you think of...
Big fan. Shit.
Only if... It depends on who comes. It depends on who shows up.
Exactly. Did they bathe? Is it summer? We live in New Orleans. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered for this. All joking aside, I have actually no problem with ritualized sexuality. It doesn't bother me in the least. It never has. Because I am just an innately religious.
As long as all participants were actually consensual.
Yes, consent, 100%. We know what world we live in now, how important it is. We want to be respectful of consent. It's incredibly important. But sacred sexuality doesn't bother me in the least. I will say, I think the orgy, what a word, right?
Oh, great question, Rosie. We'll get to that in just a second.
Ooh, I love that question. I can't wait to answer that one because I have thoughts. She has thoughts.
I was just going to say, we don't usually have orgies except when Rosie's visiting.
That's true. That's true. She brings it with her. What can I say?
Joking. She seduces us all.
She's fab.
Anyway.
She's fab. No, orgies, I think the image is powerful. It's the image of rejection, right? Like you're rejecting the church. It's freedom. It's liberation. It's, I will say, better in theory than practice because it's a lot of coordination.
I couldn't make it that week. No. It's not my fault.
It's a lot of planning. You know what I mean? It's a lot of cleaning. So I know who, right? But no, all joking aside, yes, I do think that the image is powerful. Do I think it actually happens a lot? Probably not.
Rosie, if you can be one of the video callers, since I was going to try to make you guess, that'd be great. But let's ask Rosie's question.
Yes.
What do you think about ritual BDSM? Well, it's very Gardnerian.
It's not.
It is. Scourging, I guess scourging and the binding. As some of you may know, Gardnerians are a bit more into it as far as using it as a tool. We know how, but it's not really the Alexandrian way to, we don't purify with scourging, However, what do I think about it? Oh, well, when it happens, it can be quite fabulous. I think that's the problem, really, is in our coven, I think that there's too many kinks and that they might like it too much. So
I don't know why it's looking at me.
I don't know.
How dare you?
I don't know if it would really be magically
my thing.
effective. So we don't tend to use the scourge that way. It's not a part of our Alexandrian practice. I mean, we've experimented on some level, and of course there are
With the
certain
scourge, not
rituals.
BDSM.
There's certain rituals. Well, tying people up and beating them is a little bit BDSM, isn't it?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But we've never burned each other with candles, Rosie.
Or cigarettes.
Oh, but not on purpose anyway.
Actually, I was about to say, yes, you did.
Not on purpose.
It legitimately happened.
Yes.
It's only dirty if you call each other names
but
during.
so I don't forget, I'm going to take a quick break to say happy birthday to Carrie Ewers, one of our priestesses in the New Orleans Coven. It is her birthday today.
Yes.
She's 21.
She is. She's very
21.
young. You never, not a day over 21.
She's probably
Thank God
not
she can
watching
drink.
this and having a fabulous time right now, but we want to say, we love you.
We
Lift
love
your
you.
glass.
Cheers.
Blessed be Carrie. Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, sweetheart.
We're talking about sex, witchcraft, and drinking wine in honor of your son's return, solar return.
Solar return.
Solar return. Happy birthday.
So what Rosie said, and I think is important, is she said, what about people who are already into BDSM or whatever, and they want to bring it into the ritual? It's
I
like what you were
really don't
talking
think
about.
it's appropriate for you to bring up my personal life.
These things must be done delicately.
These things must be done delicately.
Delicately.
Why can I hear her?
Why can you hear who?
Rosie,
Why can C-A-N.
That was the button.
that was the button for the little quote from the Wizard of
Why am
Oz.
I hearing it? It shouldn't.
Well, I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
But anyway, Brian talked about this earlier. Alex actually dealt with this because somebody did come to the coven who was really into it and wanted to get their rocks off by getting beaten. And so he used a silk scourge and took it away from them. And they left.
I'm sure in today's progressive age, I mean, I don't know the habits of all of our coven members' sexuality, and they certainly don't know mine.
I know a lot of them.
So, yeah, I think it brings it to the mundane, just like we were talking about the Great Rite earlier. If anything becomes mundane, then it's not really that magical, is it?
She said, but as a sacred practice. And I see what you mean here, Rosie. Here's the thing. S&M is even if it's completely secular, is still about an exchange of power.
Correct.
It is. And witchcraft is about an exchange of power. The gods are about an exchange of power. So there is actually, I think, a weird sort of connection to it in witchcraft. I have to say there is.
Yeah, but the problem comes...
Power is being lent, power is being taken, power is being given freely, consent, it's there.
Certain individuals don't understand it. So they've got the scourge in their hand, and they're, scourging an individual, and it makes them feel very powerful.
Yes.
That's why we don't. That's why we don't
But
go that way.
what's funny is what they're really misunderstanding is the person who gives themselves up to sacrifice is the one with the power.
Correct.
That's the mystery. The people
the
who are
one
doing the beating
with the
think they have the
potential.
power. They don't.
Yeah, it's not a method
They don't.
overly used in the Alexandrian tradition. It is, making fun at our Gardnerian brothers and sisters.
We love you.
Just like they make fun of us burning too much incense, which may or may not be true.
It's aggressively true.
It's not true.
It's aggressively true.
There's no
Every
such
robe I
thing.
own smells
too
so much
much.
like church. I don't even know.
It's all in good fun, really. I think that, once
Power
again,
exchanges.
if it's consensual and if everyone involved is okay with it and no one's being harmed, there's nothing ethically wrong with it. Do I think it's always an effective occult practice? No, because I think that people get into it for the wrong reasons or carry on with it because they think they have to or because it's a taboo or whatever.
I agree.
You can raise power that way, absolutely, but I find there are much more effective ways of raising power. I've found more power in dancing than I do really with scourging. And Gardner's original coven felt the same way. When he had been removed from the Bricketwood coven, I think before he died, traveling, but afterwards, they quickly started dancing more because he was scourging constantly.
They do it a lot.
Not just for
No
purification,
judgment,
for
but
everything.
they do it a lot.
Not as many nowadays. I think some of them have adjusted for the same reason. If you do anything too much, it loses its luster.
Yeah, you get bored with it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what
so,
breeds depravity. It's like the Marquis de Sade.
I think
You
dancing
get
is a
bored,
much
you
more
keep
effective
searching for
way
something
to, for me, not for everyone. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, though. I don't think that it's wrong to ritually scourge. I think it's wrong to impose that on someone. But, if you're in a coven and they're imposing that, you shouldn't be in that coven.
Yeah.
It's your choice to be in that coven. So I think it's wrong of us to sit back and say, well, that's a wrong practice. And I don't think that's what Alexandrians are doing. I don't think we're actually, we joke. I don't think we're actually saying it's wrong. We're saying we don't find it necessary or to be the most effective way. We're very greedy for power, so we want to get straight to the goods, and if we don't need to do something, it's been cut out. That's how that is. But
Yeah.
Is it sexual? Oh, I don't know. It's a bit erotic to be scourged sometimes. I know, when Rosie was scourging me in the sacred orgy, I was kind of feeling a bit heterosexual.
Yeah, she I almost said she was.
We're lying. Cheeky, she said.
Cheeky. We are cheeky.
It's your turn. Ask me a question.
Your turn, my turn, all the turns. I've had 2 classes already.
Have you eaten today?
Yes, I had a lot of carbs today because I knew I'd be around you and there'd be a lot of alcohol
Do you know
consumed.
I haven't eaten today. That makes him a fatty.
It's not true. How dare you?
Well, at this side angle, because I keep looking at this.
No body shame. Also,
No. We both look good. We're good. Levi and I are actually on the fast track to becoming best friends because he's going to be a high priest very soon. And
I'm leaving. I don't even like the minute I get it, I'm like, I copied the book. I gotta go. It's been nice.
It's been fun.
Oh, thank you, Rosie. She's complimenting us on chat.
Good. Oh, we're doing all right.
We're doing fine.
We do.
I mean, I'm a little.
I was going to compliment us and say we're going to be best friends because everyone else is jealous of us. That's fine.
Yay! No, I'm kidding. A question. Okay, I have a very specific one that somebody at work was talking with me today about. That was about because we were talking about sex and magic, and they brought up something that I think everybody forgets about, and it's a super mundane thing, but very important. If the whole idea of magic, using sex for magic, not just for fertility or as a symbol or as the great rite, but as an act that you are using for a spell from magic, what do you do about protection? Don't know why that sound is appropriate at this moment, but shit, I'll take it. It's Elvira Gulch. Welcome.
Yes. I thought that was going to be the mistress of the dark.
It was not. He thought it was going to be Elvira, and we just had a weird Wizard of Oz moment as I'm asking about condoms and witchcraft.
I don't know.
Hey.
Once again, condoms. What?
Condoms.
Oh,
Rose.
in
Golden Girls reference. If you didn't get it, I'm very disappointed in you as a homosexual.
Condoms in what?
My question is what do we do with that? The concept of exchanging fluid, or the concept of latex being in between you, an artificial thing in a fertility religion. What's the game there? What do we do?
In the sacred orgy.
Okay, enough, girl. We are not.
Hope
We are
they
not.
have one on.
This is not happening on the regular.
Well, it's between those two consenting adults within, I guess, any framework. If they were, generally speaking, if you're going to do the great rite with somebody in true, they're going to be an established couple.
Okay.
They're established lovers. They're established lovers, so it's between them. We wouldn't ask, I don't think I have anything else more to say about that.
So you just like to keep it in between those two people. It's a
Well, I
sacred
think it
act.
is,
We don't
yeah.
bother it. We don't worry about it.
No, it's between them. Like I said, nothing should ever be expected. Nothing should ever be, forced. So if someone was going to have ritual sex, it should be something they've already discussed what they're going to do.
Okay.
It should never be a surprise.
So you don't believe in doing it on the fly?
No. Because if you did it on the fly, how easily could that become rape?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And
Especially with alcohol involved.
What I will have
the
to
headiness
say
of ritual.
is that
I agree.
there have been, there have been instances where that has been proclaimed, and I'm not going to point fingers because I don't actually know, and I certainly don't know anyone involved, so I'm not speaking to it. But if you have a young priestess and an older priest,
Which happened a lot.
they go in to do that, and she feels like she needs to, or whatever. I think it could be construed of rape. So I would say openly, the reason why this conversation is important is any new initiate should know. They should not be surprised. So whether it's your high priestess or your high priest or somebody in a made-up tradition or just some weirdo at a pagan festival crawling into your tent at night, if you didn't actually already agree to it, it's not okay.
Agreed. Consent is
it's not magical.
the utmost importance.
It should be consensual.
Yeah.
So I think that would already be a pre-established thing, because you're talking about pre-established lovers. Usually when that happens, it's a married couple. And quite frankly, honestly, and I know this to be true without giving any names, I know married couples in the craft who chose not to do the physical great rite for that moment, because it was too much pressure, and it wasn't the time, and it was mundane for them.
It's like that time you tried to videotape yourself, didn't work out well, did it?
And I know other ones who've had a fantastic
That Motel
time.
6 wasn't as sexy as you thought it'd be.
Now, let's also keep
Just
in mind
saying.
that this was called Sex and Witchcraft, so I'm going to ask you a different question.
Ask me.
Is there a hypocrisy towards gay lovers versus straight ones in craft culture?
A long time ago there used to be, now no. Most priests are gay, let's be honest. It's a goddess religion. Straight men are like unicorns in this religion. In America, at least. That's
In the
not,
big cities.
Yeah, in the big cities. That's not true in rural areas. That's not true in England necessarily, but it is very true here. I think there used to be, sure, Gardner said some things that were a little rude. But outside of that, not anymore. I think it's a moot point now. I think it used to be a thing. It's not anymore.
I think that you still run into this idea sometimes, because I think maybe it's because I've seen it in play. You run into this idea sometimes that if two established heterosexual lovers all of a sudden become a thing, let's say Ellie and Ronaldo all of a sudden became this hot and heavy couple. Ellie'd be so happy.
She'd be ecstatic.
So ecstatic.
No, she has a soulmate, in theory.
In our coven, I don't think it would make a difference. If I had anyone in the coven fall in love and they were truly in love, I'm like, oh, but all right, you're in love, right?
Fair.
Don't deny love. If all of a sudden, you and Austin Shippey became lovers, I would be, no, you should, Levi, you should have known better than that, blah, 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 blah.
I should have known better.
But,
how dare I?
How dare I would accept it.
I'm sure you would.
Just like I have with friendships.
Yeah, of course.
However, I do think that in some circles, there is this idea that magic can create false love within the circle, which
I agree.
in a sense it
completely.
can.
Yeah.
Because it.
But that's infatuation, not.
Yeah, correct.
It's infatuation.
So it can create that. And we also have that idea
Glamour,
of
it's glamour.
We have the idea of the perfect couple, right?
The divine couple.
Yes.
I mean, we worship a divine couple.
So I think sometimes heterosexual couples are given a free pass that homosexual couples have not been given.
That's true. And I also will say it's the process of, here's the thing, I actually think gay men might be perceived differently in craft than gay women, or I shouldn't say gay men and gay women, but queer people in general. If you're
Do you know
female,
any gay women in initiative craft?
I've heard of such things, but
I know a couple of Gardnerians.
yeah. But my point is beyond that. My point is that it's the concept of not having a female, not having a woman. It's more that than I think it is the sexual aspect. I think it's the fact of an environment without a female, because it is a goddess-heavy religion.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's not to downplay the god. It's just saying it's a goddess-heavy religion.
I think that's why you don't find, and I'm going to get really controversial here, but it just happens to be the truth. Why you don't find a lot of full-on lesbians in initiative craft is not because we're against it by any means.
No, not at all.
I do know a couple of Gardnerian ones. There's actually a few famous ones. They are fat.
Why does that have to be a thing? I do not endorse this.
But
Do
anyway,
not endorse. Do not agree.
I don't know if they're fat because they're lesbians or because they're Gardnerian. I don't really know.
My god.
But in any case,
do not agree.
the reason why this happens is because we are a heteronormative concept. We're working with fertility and balance and polarity, and we don't care about your sexuality at all, really. Not nowadays. However, your physical being matters for the simple sense that a quartz crystal is a quartz crystal and an amethyst is an amethyst. You are what you are, and there's a magic behind that. There's a power. You've got the power of your soul, but you've got the power of the physicality. It's Hermetic principle, as above, so below. Sorry if this ruffles your feathers, you're just not an occultist and you don't get it. That's just a norm. So when it comes to the psychology of it, though, I find that gay men naturally... We love powerful women.
Always.
That's why we love the musicians. We love
Madonna,
yeah.
Judy Garland,
whoever, So as gay men being attracted to this powerful goddess and a free sexual god, it just makes sense.
Yep.
Where for a long time, lesbians were kind of cut off from...
They were shut out.
Adoring the male principle at all. I think it's changing now because culture's changing and we're getting a whole new generation of lesbians who are very feminine, very in touch with themselves. I mean, not that it's wrong to be masculine because I'm so butch, obviously. But I think that's why, though. I think it's because they just... there's also alternatives. You've got the sort of Dianic movement and the feminist witchcraft
movement. That's what I was going to say. I think that's the real reason. And
it cuts the men out of it.
Is that a lot of queer women had movements to go to that other people did not, that were open.
We had one, still exists.
Yeah, the gay men did have one, but I think a lot of queer women were able to experience craft in unique ways because of the Dianic movement, because of all of those sort of offshoots that happened because of it, those covens that were born. And so they had that. And I think that was a unique expression of their spirituality that is why we don't see them as, commonly in initiatory.
I think it's changing. Definitely it's not
over. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
I mean, Levi loves lesbians.
I don't know why. Hello, hi, I do. I do.
He does.
I love
I need more lesbians in my
Hey.
life because I don't want to have to work on my Jeep anymore.
Wow. Stereotypes. They're a thing.
And I need someone to...
Of course, I mean, look at this one. So
things
stereotypes might be there for a reason. Look at that hair.
Some of them.
Just saying.
Don't be jealous.
Wow, it's
Don't
a
be
bald
jealous
joke. Hey, just because I'm rocking the Anton
You
LaVey.
set yourself up.
I did. Set it up and you knocked it down.
All right, let me
Well
have
done.
a question for you. I thought
question
this would
for
be
me.
a really good question for you. How historic is the notion that witchcraft is a fertility cult? Deep, really, isn't it?
Deep, so deep.
Well, not that deep, but deeper than most of the questions.
Yeah, I know. It's like, have you ever got hard in circle? Now for a real question. Because yes, I have. Fertility. Okay, is it historical? Yes and no. The no is that, I think that it's important to realize that our witchcraft mythos, the mystery cults, the witch cult in Europe, Margaret Murray's thesis, basically, I think has been too maligned and too attacked. But it is still historically not the way she said it was. So on the one hand, it's not super historical.
It's flawed heavily.
It's flawed heavily.
The hypothesis, I think.
Now, on the other hand, fertility as a central aspect of mystery religion is absolutely historical. That is Eleusis. Eleusis, for example, in Greece, is 100% about fertility. Persephone rises again. It is the rebirth of the world. It is, it's absolutely present there. We've been to Eleusis.
And the most powerful place I've ever been to in my entire life.
I've been to Paris. I've been to London. I've traveled all kinds of sacred sites. I've never felt what I felt at Eleusis. And it is absolutely about fertility. So it is very historical.
He's seen London. He's seen France. He's seen everyone in their underpants.
I've seen everybody in nothing, let's be honest. After a while, it's boring.
All in good time, my little pretty. All in good time.
Take the buttons away from her, okay?
I'm still learning.
No, but it is historical. Eleusis is historical. You also see it in...
Gay, Rosie.
It's very gay. This is all gay shit.
Rosie, do you want to try to call in just to see? We've got experiment.
The no thing. Look at her bringing up the deep shit.
What did she say?
Gender versus biological sex.
Complicated.
Really? We're going to do this?
In my opinion, well, it's skirted around quite a lot, isn't it? Well, they say gender is a social construct, blah, 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 blah. Here's the reality situation. As a gay man...
This is where we lose
As
you.
a very liberal person, I have no problem with how people identify sexually or what their sexual identification is. However, you can come tell me you're an attack helicopter. That doesn't make you one.
Troll example.
There is a biological reality to a biological woman and a biological man. If someone changed their gender, I would completely accept that. I would respect their choice. I'd be their friend. That's all fine and good. I don't know how I translate that to the magic circle because here's the reality of the situation. Just like there are not a lot of lesbians lining up to become initiates of BTW, Alexandria Gardnerian, there's not a lot of transgendered people lining up to do it either. And if you talk to most transgendered people about this, one on the level, not a Facebook troll,
Yeah.
They're actually not particularly interested in
It's too heteronormative. It's too binary.
being in a nude heteronormative religion.
Yeah.
And we're talking about religion here. Religion should never have to bend to someone's beliefs or comfortability. That's why we have so many different religions. And that's why we have freedom of religion. I think people, especially in America, sometimes want to regulate religion as a state thing. You know, like, you can't be prejudiced against this person, or you have to accept this person. No. Religion, and by freedom of religion, you have the right to assemble with whom and how you choose, even if we think that makes people, makes people not kind. They have the right to do that. So when I look at the structure of the fertility cult of religious witchcraft, that priesthood, I don't know how I would handle a transsexual person personally, because until I was faced with that decision myself in truth, I don't know. But what I would tell that person is I would tell them that this isn't going to be easy for you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very triggering.
Even if I accept you as a woman or a man or whatever, and our coven does, it doesn't mean people are going to want to be initiated by you, because it could devalidate their lineage in many people's eyes. These are just truths.
That would be hard for people.
I would wonder why. I've always made a joke that if I had a transsexual person in the coven, I'd put a Baphomet head on them and stick them in the corner, and we worship them like a god if they be something else. I don't know. It's all,
Wow, we took it to a weird place.
What do we do with a hermaphrodite? That's a real thing.
We don't use that word anymore. Intersex person.
Well, a naturally born hermaphrodite.
With a natural, we don't use the word hermaphrodite
Hermes
anymore. That's a slur.
Aphrodite. Hermes
Intersex.
Aphrodite.
What do we do with an intersex person?
What do we do with
There are
them?
no scare quotes here, Deborah. It is literally, they are called intersex people. I think it's often a moot point. It's a philosophical argument. I agree with Brian.
If I was an intersex person, I'd want to be called a hermaphrodite, because it's a combination of Hermes and Aphrodite.
Yeah, most people not on that level.
Intersex sounds very mundane.
Most people not on that level.
We're
I want to
talking-
be gods. They're just like, I want to not be yelled at in the street.
I don't know how I deal with it, but it's a real thing. And that's actually that's the best question no one ever asks. They always want to ask about well, what about someone who actually is born?
Intersex, yeah.
That's a real thing. You can't treat them as a man or a woman. They're a third gender.
But that goes to that concept of gender as a societal construct.
So I think the craft answer to that question would be, it's up to each coven and the coven leaders to decide.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I would deal with it until I was faced with it, because it's easy to say you would until you actually become
There's a lot of misinformation.
connected.
There's a lot of misinformation about how, like, I have literally seen Facebook posts, forum posts, and things like that that say, like, Gardnerian craft or Alexandrian craft or British traditional witchcraft does not initiate transgender people. That's a lie. It is up to every coven. We don't have a pope.
No.
We do not have a central authority.
No.
So anybody who tells you that our religion hates X or hates Y or doesn't do A, B, or C, they probably don't know what they're talking about. So
there is, in theory, particular ways of doing things, and we have a commonality even between Gardnerians and Alexandrians. However, I'll say one thing though that may not be a kind thing for me to say.
great.
You have
That'll be rare.
You have people who might critique certain priesthood are extremely honest, like myself. We're blatantly honest.
We'll call it honest.
They might get critiqued. Most of these couples are just going to lie to you. They're not going to let a transsexual person in. They're just not going to come out and say it.
Yeah, they're gonna, which I don't like. I agree. It's very dishonest.
I can't say that I wouldn't, because if I was faced with an individual that I thought was extremely magical, and they became a real person to me because they're interacting with my life, I might accept them for the sex that they are feeling that they are. I don't know, because I've never been faced with it.
Yeah.
Outside of Facebook and a few trolls
It's
that
all
I didn't even think
ideological.
were real people, I've never had a transsexual try to enter. In fact, I know of two instances I know three of instances. Two were people that backed out. They were transsexuals who were actually given a road to get in, and they backed out. And I know another transsexual who became a transsexual after she was initiated, transitioned, and as far as I know, stopped working. So doesn't mean they're not an initiate anymore, and I could be wrong about the stop working part, but that's the only thing to my knowledge. So there is precedence for it. People want to throw that in because they're not actually concerned. Obviously, Rosie's asking an intelligent question, but they're not generally actually concerned about the transsexuals. Usually that's trying to throw a whole loop in the polarity, gender polarity thing. Because we're saying it's okay to be gay, but a gay man is still a man and a gay woman is still a woman, and it still works within our system, in our magical system. Because our magical system is a particular magical system that does have polarity as an emphasis.
Yeah.
So gay men, Christian and I, do not work together within Alexandrian system. Because I work with the priestess.
Because they are not particularly fond of each other. That's the real reason.
Maybe that too. Also,
at the root of things.
He's going to kill you later.
I know, right? He's not even listening. Thank God.
He is quite fond of me.
That's not what I said. For anybody who could feel the shade coming off of that, the honesty.
Oh, we're fond of each other. But no, it's not the magical system that we're working in. In fact, another question, except you owe me a question now. Sister.
I do owe you a question.
If anyone wants to post a question on there, since we're just kind of babbling amongst ourselves right now.
We are. We've gone on some tangents.
We have this thing.
I've had some wine.
It actually says, ask a question, and it should pop up, but nobody is. So we're reading the chat, which is good. So I don't even know how many people are watching this.
I don't either. I just have faith in the gods. Hail Satan. Kidding.
No, Rosie, we're glad for the participation. She would come on, everyone, but she's just gotten off a flight.
She did. Yeah, she's
in
England.
Feel quite,
we miss you.
Quite ready. Yes, we do miss you. And send our love to the coven and figure out that whole thing we were talking about.
Yes. A question for you. Okay. Do you feel that popular portrayals of witchcraft and sexuality in media are helpful in the sense that they make witchcraft seem sexy and alluring and weird and over the top, or do you think they're hurtful?
When I first got into witchcraft, I think that I came across a lot of the same things we all did, which were, in a sense, the efforts of our elders to correct these misunderstandings. And one of the things was witches don't worship the devil. Witches don't have orgies, et cetera, et cetera.
But we do worship the devil aggressively. Big fan.
The devil,
I knocked him off. I'm sorry.
The devil is, well, that's a whole other concept. But anyway, I could bring back the devil.
That's what Alex said.
Call him the hornet one.
I've had a lot of pork. I want to have some more.
Yes, let's do this. Let's do this right.
God help me.
We saved all of our calories for a fruit salad milkshake.
It's not a fruit. It's literally just booze.
Hail Dionysus. So what was the freaking question?
Okay, we actually have a legitimate question that I think is interesting.
I'm still answering the one you asked, and I finished.
I know. Finish first, and then
what was it?
No, finish yours.
No, I don't remember the question.
The portrayal of witchcraft is very sexy. Is very over the
yes,
top.
I had a little bit of a point.
Is that good or bad?
So get straight to it. Witches don't have orgies. Blah 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 blah. This is a big myth. Blah 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 blah. I think witchcraft has been so whitewashed now that it's a bit boring and uninteresting for some people.
Agreed, 100%.
It's. I'll go back to the piggins in the park. Witchcraft is not fat women in sundresses walking around the park
all the time. Shit.
If you're going to wield the forces of the universe, you need to be able to wield control of your own body, and you can speak to that better than anyone I know. Not anymore. You got rid of it, didn't you?
I did.
Yes, because you became disciplined, and I once weighed 258 pounds. So I myself have had weight issues in the past. There's only one picture that exists.
You found the sass, somebody says in the chat.
So, anywho, there's a show called Salem that is historically inaccurate, and it makes witches to be horrible devil worshippers, but there's a line in it that I actually find to have an occult truth in witchcraft. To work magic, one must be aroused. I thought that was the most brilliant thing ever.
You do have to be aroused.
I think this sort of idea that, a lot of people are trying to take witchcraft back into a dark place. We get it with Salem. We got it with that new show.
Sabrina. They worship the devil openly.
American Horror Story. We got this sort of darker side of witchcraft coming back. It is a pushback. The pendulum's swinging a little bit back towards the other way.
We're tired of crystals and tree
If you look into real witchcraft, Gardnerian Alexandrian, you'll find that it is an occult practice. It is an occult practice, and you could see these people, the original members and, the ones of today, standing in a circle in any occult community at a very fancy occult party at a mansion. You can picture them there. You will only find them in a park when they're looking to try to help people, which is not me. Anyway.
The absolute elitism
What was
that
the
is just
question?
leaking off. It doesn't even matter at this point because the answer was just like, we're better than you. Like, oh, that's always your answer, Brian. Okay, so we did have a legitimate one from
There's a recent
Andrea, not sure if I'm saying your name right. Sorry, sweetie. Written instances of females wearing an athame or wand to represent the god and initiating a woman.
What is this?
When a man was not present, probably not British traditional witchcraft.
You've got that a bit off. The published source says that it's a sword. And what is misunderstood about this is it says nothing about initiation. What it says is that when the high priestess straps on the sword, she can represent the god. It's nothing to do with initiation. It has nothing to do with polarity work. It means something else entirely that would only make sense if you were trained within an initiatory, within the craft. You know, so you've got a bit of a public thing there that I think a lot of people have taken to mean something else. It would only happen on certain occasions.
And I think here's what I always tell people. I get actually asked a lot, more than I thought I would be after becoming initiated. As a gay man, as a queer person, does it not bother you to be in a heteronormative religion? No. And here's why. I've never interpreted it as being heteronormative. I've never interpreted it as being an attack against one gender or against non-binary expression or against expressing your body in whatever
I
way
see the
you
gods
need.
as both being bisexual.
Yes, and as being fluid. The question is, the world is patriarchal. The world is extraordinarily patriarchal, like to a level that blows my mind sometimes. As a teacher, I see it all the time amongst children. I see how we raise them, how we raise girls versus boys, how patriarchal, misogynistic the world really is. So in our religion, what I love is that there is a guarantee that women will always have a voice. Women will always have a place. And so to me, it's not about heteronormativity at all. It's about remembering the divine feminine and that it's always going to be present. And there's no way to, exactly, to the goddess.
Blessed be.
There's no way to take it away.
Yes,
sacred.
you know, we also have to remember that when this cult reemerged into the world and was being established by Gerald Gardner in his initial Witches, it was in the 1950s. Women usually didn't even have jobs, you know. So here you
Especially
had,
in England. England's very
so
conservative
here
at
you
the
had
time.
women getting naked, becoming leaders of covens, representing God,
Taking power back.
you know, all of these things were happening. It was big magic. It's changed now in the sense that what makes it important now is different from what made it important on some level. But there is a huge female empowerment. I see it as an equal balance, but the pendulum is swinging the other way because men have been in control and still are. Men are still in control. Women have more power historically than they have had for hundreds of years. But throughout the world, patriarchy is still the main. You know,
We're a rebellion against that.
In the West, there is more female acknowledgement, but it's not universal across the world, is it? So, we're still about the great work, and the great work is bringing balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Not imbalance. This isn't about making women in
I'm
charge
being told
of men.
I'm not loud enough.
It's about making women
First time in my life.
goddesses because they are.
Exactly. And like I said, it's always about the fact that, like, I have been in so many situations where female voices are absolutely silenced, absolutely cut off. And in craft, that never happens because my religion can't function without a woman. And so there's a magic there. There's a power there that's
we
beautiful.
don't ever work if there's not at least one man or one woman in the circle. And
Exactly.
Rosie, taking me to the woodshed is very Godgenarian. I'm going to tell Val.
Oh, somebody said, Rosie was like, I'm going to take you to the woods. Girl.
Woodshed, she thinks.
Oh, to the
She's going to
woodshed.
beat me.
To the woodshed.
Oh, no, maybe she did say the woods.
No, she said the woods. She's going to take you to the woods. You
sorry.
know, for a little bit of...
Oh.
We do worship the devil. Just for anybody curious.
Stop telling people this.
I'm never going to stop telling people that, ever. Do you worship the devil? Yes.
Levi is an oath breaker.
I'm kidding. I've had a lot of wine and I've not had a lot of food.
Question for you.
Question from me.
Who are your favorite sex gods?
Okay, sex gods.
Besides me.
Do I just name like a litany of porn stars that I'm a fan of? Like that's my sex god? No, I have a favorite sex god. He lives elsewhere. He knows who he is. Favorite gods associated with sexuality? It's funny because you and I had a very interesting conversation about this lately, about how like Diana in the Greek system is very prudish.
Mm-hmm.
Like she actually punishes people for seeing her naked, and then
the Roman.
And the Roman Diana, yeah. And then the later...
We'll get that down eventually.
Okay, first of all, I actually speak quite a bit. How dare you, first of all? Okay, you don't even...
Artemis.
Yes. Artemis. Diana, too, though. They have a lot of stories in the Roman religion and in the Greek religion of her being very prudish, very sort of virginal. And then in the later folklore of the witch trials, she's very sexual. So I think gods develop sexuality over time.
And adapted.
And they adapt. If I had to pick gods that are very sexual in their mythology that I resonate with, absolutely Dionysus or Bacchus or Liber, like the whole concept of drunken freedom, the Maenads, religious ecstasy, orphism.
Rosie really wants you to say one of my favorites.
What's that? Pan. Of course, Pan. My God, the goat.
The magical rapist.
Okay, don't. No.
Totally
no, take it down.
Raping anything. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about rapists. Not bad if you like it.
I reject this utterly, completely. Anybody watching, not a fan. Don't agree.
Rosie says it's not rape if you want it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just sexual desire. Let's not get into some weird non-consensual shit.
Isis is a huge sexual goddess, and most people don't realize that.
I think so. Fertility. She was a child.
Do you know anyone else who made a magical golden dildo?
Okay, we wouldn't call it a dildo.
A magical
yes,
golden
she did recreate
penis
the phallus of Osiris.
out of gold.
You're not wrong.
And then she had sex with his dead body and gold penis.
I've had a lot of port.
And
bam!
God.
This is my religion, people. I left Catholicism for this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice because I get to have the gay sex every now and then, but shit. I have to deal with this like on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday. This is what I do with my life. This and teach the children. So only in New Orleans are those two things not mutually exclusive.
Both Levi and Rosie can tell you, even though they're not going to want to, that I'm actually the
No more wine.
I am the nicest.
Girl, this is British traditional witchcraft. There's going to be a lot more wine.
person in the coven.
Not
I'm actually
true.
the nice one.
This is what is called a lack of self-awareness. It's very, very dangerous.
I am nice.
Okay, you asked me a legitimate
nurturing.
question. Bacchus and Dionysus would be gods that I think that are associated with sexuality that I think are very powerful images for me, very powerful spirits. I agree with you that Isis is a sexual being because she's a mother. You can't have children, obviously, without sexuality. We're not cyborgs. We're not there yet. We're not that postmodern. What else? What other gods? Pan, of course. I mean, the great Pan.
We're constantly looking at this.
I know. I'm looking at questions.
We need to make a face
You need to make
here.
all the eye contact, and I need to make all the computer contact. The devil is one of my favorites. The whole concept of Lilith, the concept of Lilith and the devil and sort of this sexual rebellion.
The witch's devil from medieval folklore is
That's what
very
I'm talking
sexual.
about. I'm not talking about Satan. I'm talking about the witch's
There's
devil.
nothing in the Bible about with Satan having sex with people, but the medieval devils copulating with witches.
Lilith and the devil, yes. Maria's mentioning that, and I agree completely. Powerful image. Powerful image.
Margaret Murray may have been conventionally flawed in a lot of ways.
Least, yeah.
But the idea that the medieval folklore devil obviously was grafting onto pagan gods. There's nothing in the Bible that said he had horns, that he was sexual, that he had
No, that's
hooves.
all
It's
paganism.
all
that got
paganism.
Brought
It's
in. Yeah.
Pan, it's Faunus, it's Dionysus, it's Serapis, a huge one. I mean, Serapis not only has horns, but he's got a pitchfork as well.
He does.
And he rules Hades because he's taken on all that
He
stuff.
took a lot from Pluto, yeah.
So you've got all these European
The serpent, Rosie
ideas
says, absolutely.
going on.
The divine serpent.
Christianity took over it. They became the archetype for, Krampus. I don't know if Krampus.
Yeah, Krampus is very devilish. No, he's sexual. I don't think he's coming. He's just coming to take naughty children. I don't think he's there to bang them.
Oh, I don't know.
It might get weird. I don't know.
We don't know what he does after he puts them in those bags.
Oh, and he beats you, Rosie says. Yeah, it does get a little sexual. You're right, though. You're joking, but you're right. With Birch.
Actually, it was actually quite horrific. I saw a modern video. You can find this on YouTube. What I'm talking about now, you can actually find on YouTube if you look long enough. Most of the modern Krampus festivals in Germany are now parades, and they're grand parades. I mean, they actually look like something from a Margaret Murray Witch's Sabbath. But there's some that happen in rural towns to where basically like 12 men will go get drunk and dress up in these really bad Krampus suits.
These two are.
And they beat anyone that comes out that day. And I literally saw this guy in a Krampus suit beating an old woman, literally with this birch
Like we
thing.
do at church.
I mean, it was pretty brutal, and she wasn't happy about it. Yeah.
But no, I agree. So other gods that are associated with sexuality, I mean, there's a lot of them that don't speak to me, like Priapus and whatnot, but Pan is huge. Well, literally, I mean, we're not wrong there. Dionysus and Bacchus, Isis, because of her role as the divine mother, who brings forth the king through sacred sexuality, who saves Osiris and creates the golden phallus. But
Don't forget Aphrodite.
Aphrodite, oh my God, yes. Aphrodite or Rania is one of my favorites. Aphrodite of the stars.
Your desire.
He found the buttons. He's been drinking.
Blanc-Douith. Oh, there's an interesting one.
Have another cherry.
Have another cherry. darling.
Blanc-Douith.
Blediwith. Oh my God, you're Welsh. God bless you.
Blanc-Douith is how I've always said it. Blanc-Douith.
Blediwith.
I don't
Right,
know.
Rosie?
I'd have to have Val here to tell me how to say it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go with
Rosie said
Blanc-Douith.
Levi's right. He's always
I'll
right.
say it again.
Blediwith.
Blediwith. Oh, that sounds right.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
Dundiski Kimrai.
Blediwith.
Look at me
Yes, it
speaking
does.
Welsh. Hey.
Oh, good job, Levi. Yeah, Blediwith. That's going to take me a bit to get that.
Dundiski Kimrai.
But I know the story, do you?
I do know the story from the
Shut up, I'm
Mabinogion.
telling it anyway.
I love how he asked. He's like, God damn it, of course you know it.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Right. Deborah, I read a lot. I got a lot going on.
Well, Aryan Road or Aryan Rod, won't give Lou a wife. So Gwydion makes one for him out of flowers.
Yep.
And she becomes Blodeuwedd.
Blediwith.
That sounds right, doesn't it? Blodeuwedd. And Blodeuwedd tries to kill him with a knife, turns into an owl and flies away.
Gwydion.
So it's a very liberated story. If you try to make a woman into a goddess, she's going to try to stab you with a knife.
Big fan. I choose violence, says Cersei Lannister, the only true goddess.
Yes, and math.
Yeah, and math bad Mathonoi, right?
Okay. Great stories. In the Mabinogi are these stories
I
to be
love
found.
the Welsh legends. They're beautiful. Thew and math, yeah.
Val's tried to teach me a little Welsh. I've got
It's a hard
some.
language.
Do you want to hear what I know?
What do you know?
That's
That's not. No, this is right.
How it sounds.
God preserve us. Yeah.
God's preserved the craft.
God's preserve the craft. I've been learning Welsh for a while, but I am not.
All right.
It's a hard language. Ask me another question.
Have you ever done a love spell?
Have I ever done a love spell? Yes. Yes. They've been colossal failures, as I think they often are. The most successful one I've ever done is about opening communication with a lover, but I think...
that can be a bad thing.
True. I mean, girl.
Yeah.
I think the big problem with love spells is it's very hard to differentiate between love and absolute infatuation. And when you're desperate to try to do something magical, spiritual, religious, to get a lover, to cement a relationship, to make something permanent, to get a marriage or whatever, are you really in love? Are you infatuated? Are you scared? What are you afraid of losing? There's like a fear there that's inside of love spells. That I think is
a lot of
dangerous.
people end up just casting spells on themselves.
Exactly. They're desperate.
But not because anything else. But
Why did you bring a bottle of port here, by the way? This was very hateful.
Because we're talking about naughty things.
We are. And I've had a lot of Portuguese wine.
I need to question, Levi. I've asked you too.
You have. So you asked me about sex gods, which is a hilarious phrase.
Do you guys like the question format? We might have guests at some point, but we really don't have a plan.
Oh, good point, Rosie. I agree.
What did she say?
That the only true love work is with the angel Hanael. It's a whole thing.
I like what Rosie said here. She says, Welsh is a pretend language devised to piss the English off.
That's what Dutch is. Dutch is a made-up goddamn language. I speak Dutch, and that language does not even sound real. Like, please. Fucking de Boot is literally the word for a college in the neighborhood. Come on. That's made up.
All right, tell me a question.
Okay, a question. Do you feel that there can be a place for a traditional view of sexuality within witchcraft, or do you think that witches are expected to be polyamorous, sort of sexually liberated, maybe not having what is called traditional morality, not saying it's valid, but do you think there's an onus on people or a sort of burden on us to be liberated in a very extreme way?
Well, I'd have to first...
Do we have to be rebels is what I'm
I'd
saying.
first have to say I don't care.
Valid.
I think
Valid.
that...
He doesn't care about a lot besides wine.
Wine, sex, and witchcraft.
Valid.
But we're
Okay.
talking about all those things right now, except the wine. We're not really talking about that.
It's working though.
For me personally, I can tell you that for most of my life, I actually had pretty strict sexual limitations. It's not quite the case now. I'm a bit more, evolved, I suppose. Life, experience, getting to know yourself, getting to know the world, accepting things, letting the rose-colored glasses fall off, having your heart broken millions of times, all those sorts of things.
Millions. She's popular.
Millions. My heart's been broken more than my loins could ever be.
What does that even mean?
You figure
Who's
that out.
breaking your loins? What shit are you getting up to? It's like that line in the Golden Girls. What the hell is going on in this house at night?
I think it's okay for a witch to be monogamous and with one person. I think it's okay for a witch to have orgies. I don't think any of this has anything to do with the craft. I think
These things must be done delicately.
I think that
Careful, children.
as far as the craft is concerned, as long as everyone's being honest and nobody's hurting anyone, it's fine. People hate when we bring up the Wiccan Rede.
I have very strong opinions.
Can it
about that, by the
harm
way.
none? Do what you will.
Very strong opinions. They're not going to come out tonight, but we've been
They
drinking.
can, but here's the thing. Yes, that's not a biblical Moses law for witches. However, it's a nice thing to
Rosie,
say.
Exactly.
And I think that, honestly, I don't want to be friends or know anyone who is living their life trying to cause harm or think it's okay to do it.
Yeah.
Whether you
Who
call it the
worships
golden
cruelty?
rule, golden
a
rule,
fascist.
or you shouldn't hurt people. I don't really want to be friends with people who want to hurt people magically
No.
or otherwise. And I think what we've got going on there is the rebellious side. You can hurt people magically and it's okay. Hurting people magically is no different than hurting people. If you can hurt people, it's the same ethics. So whether I shoot you in the gun or kill you with a death spell, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If it works. The intent is there, though. And like I said earlier in this series, in my opinion, the ethics of witchcraft is about intent. So if your intent is to harm someone, well, that's your intent. And I don't really want to be friends or know someone who goes around living a life filled with that kind of, of a mindset. But I think it's all okay. I don't care if you're in a 3-way, 4-way, 2-way, 1-way. I don't care if you're asexual, bisexual, gay, transsexual. I don't think any of that has anything to do with witchcraft. I think what has to do with witchcraft is, are you being completely honest with all the people in your love life? And is it hurting anyone? In other words, no animals, no children. Leave them alone. If everyone's consenting adults, then have at it. Nature's been doing it longer than we've been around.
Rosie has a very interesting point here. She says unconditional love is a myth. Agree or disagree? I disagree with you, Rosie, but only in a religious sense, not amongst people.
I think I have to agree in the sense that people always do want something, even if it's love back. However, I believe in unconditional love because, well, we've all got mothers, don't we? And I think mothers often have unconditional love for their children.
They would die
if
for
you're
them, yeah.
lucky. I think
they're
my
good
mother
mother.
has unconditional love for me. Every time I tell her something strange in my life, I think she thinks it's just another weird thing Brian's doing. It's fine. She wants me to be happy. She loves me no matter what. So I do believe in unconditional love, but I think when it comes to relationships, I think that it's hard to believe in it. It does exist, I think, on some level. I can think of very few people I've unconditionally loved, but I think I have unconditionally loved a few people. But there's always that sort of natural side too that I struggle with. That's like, if somebody hurts you, they've hurt you, and so you naturally feel inclined to fight back, or like
Sure.
you're going to. When I've been able to transcend that, which I have, well, I have to say that must be unconditional love on some level.
Okay. I have a thing here. I agree.
So I don't really know.
No, I agree to an extent.
I'd like to believe it exists, but I think it's rare, Rosie.
I think in romantic
if it
love,
does. Yeah.
the question she's talking about,
Romantic.
I think the question she's talking about in terms of a romantic relationship with another person, it has to benefit both people or it's exploitation, she says, and I agree.
Correct.
However, and there's a big however here that I might disagree with, Rosie. I think the concept that we are gods or that we are divine is a big thing in the occult world.
We've got a question.
Oh, we do.
Oh, Christian did
One
it.
second, and then I'll answer it. I think to answer Rosie's question, though, I think unconditional love is the only way you can actually experience divinity. And what I mean by that is the whole concept of being a god is that there is nothing you need in the world. There is nothing upon which you are contingent, right? And in a relationship or loving another human being, if you can do that fully and you can do it without expectation, that is the closest you will ever get to being a god, because you will have been doing something creative and beautiful and meaningful without need. And only a god cannot need something, right? Humans need.
Oh, they need our worship.
That's a very, I'm not a huge fan of that. I know it's a big thing right now in craft to say like the gods need us and we need the gods, but I'm a much bigger fan of that old Neoplatonic, like the center, the monad, the ipsum esse, the fons et origo needs nothing, right? And when we love another human being, when we love another human being with no expectation, that's the closest we're ever going to get to God. Okay, so I've went weird and religious.
No,
with
I
Catholic,
think that
so
it's all been some really good points. I think, I think to truly love is to love unconditionally. However, that is the definition of sacrifice.
Exactly, and the God
and
is
it's
sacrifice.
Not easy.
No,
it's
and I
not
think it comes
easy.
at the end,
especially
of the
when
practice,
you
not the
are a
beginning.
vengeful Aphrodite-like goddess
We're
incarnate
Sith,
on
apparently.
Earth. Yeah.
I was trained by a very hateful high priest. Peace is a lie, Brian. There is only passion.
It's only passion.
Through passion I gain strength. Through
Through
strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. The force shall set me free. Either way.
No, blessed be.
Blessed be. God help us.
We've got a question from Christian.
Christian literally is just reminding us to tell people to
to
ask
see-
a question by
start?
clicking the ask a question.
Oh, so you're not
button.
actually asking a question.
No, he had
Damn.
nothing interesting to add besides technical.
I did tell him, I was like, Lucy, you can't
look
be...
at the little chat.
And he's in the background now too.
It's actually been all right. The chat's been
been
okay. But
Okay,
because
so
we're paying attention to it,
Rosie-
because there's not that many people
Rosie
on
says,
this.
in
anyway.
occult practice, we love ourselves at least.
Did we
as
ever
much
get
as we
on
love
YouTube and
others.
everything? Or is
Yeah,
this
but
just-
honestly, Rosie, do you
Will
really
we be able
believe that
to
the
put this
message
on YouTube
Western
later?
people need to hear is that they need to love themselves more? Really? Like, the problem is
Irritated.
the West that we don't love ourselves enough. Are you kidding? Like, girl, we worship ourselves in the West.
I hope so.
Like, I think that's a big thing I hear all the time is you can't pour from an empty chalice and love thyself. It's like, yeah, I don't think most modern middle-class Western people need to be reminded to love themselves. I think they love themselves just fine.
The difficulty comes in is...
Agree. It is narcissism. Rosie says real love, not narcissism. I agree.
Narcissism's,
Narcissus was a god, though, so.
well, that fell in love with himself. Well, wasn't he a person?
Why did you buy port? Jesus. We have to
because
eat
you
food
love
after this.
it.
Are we eating food after this?
Can.
I'll make it a donut or something.
So,
God.
Levi, do you think witches are better lovers than mortals?
No. Oh my God, no.
You've been with the wrong witches.
Well,
I definitely think witches are better lovers.
no, I think people who are.
Have you been with a witch?
I have been with witches, yes.
Real witches.
You mean initiates?
Yes.
You mean initiates?
Initiates.
No.
Bah, then you don't know.
No. No, I think the reason I say that is not because I think that initiates aren't great lovers. It's because I think sex is so unbelievably personal, guys. Like, holy shit. I mean, it is unbelievably about the other
Suppose if
person
you're
that you're with.
selfish.
Okay, wow, somebody's a giver. Okay, somebody's telling us a lot about themselves. No, all joking aside, like, sex is personal shit. Like, I mean, it depends on who you're with and who you love and who you want to be with. And that changes everything. Emotion changes everything. So do I think witches are better lovers? If you love that particular witch, then sure, hell yeah.
Well, I'm going to give a different answer because Levi's talking about all this sappy.
Levi's had a lot of drink.
Levi's
so-
talking about the whole. He's becoming romantic. He's
Is he?
He might be touched with a bit of. I won't say it.
Say it. No, say it.
He might be bitten by the love. You know, there's an old
No, I want you to
story.
say it aggressively.
There's a myth that if a witch falls in love with a mortal, they lose their powers.
Well, thank God he's not immortal.
Thank God that's from Hollywood.
Yeah,
But
thank God also he's not immortal.
Well, you have to be initiated to
Oh, we have a real
transcend.
question.
Oh, got a real question. Here
We
go.
don't. I'm sorry.
God,
God damn it.
Christian, stop making our hopes up here.
Okay, I get it. Christian's reminding us that if you have a real question, quote unquote real question, please use the ask a question button and don't put it through chat because
Now, I'm
it's
going to
easier.
give you another story here.
Oh, he's going to tell a story. She's
I'm
going to tell us something,
hold
children.
on. I need
Listen up.
I need a little more wine.
Pull your Afghan up.
So,
Grandpa's got something to say. Pour some more wine.
Grandpa.
Wow. I meant that. What's so funny is I meant that like initiatory, in an initiatory sense, he's my grandfather. But he's pouring this in pouring that wine, it makes me think that I'm calling him old, and I'm not. You look very young.
I
I'm
am
saying
very
this
young,
because I'll be in
Levi.
trouble later.
I follow the
Shit.
spring. I
You're taking
am
the
the
spring.
spring.
I still need to watch the intro to American Gods season 3. We've been online. We've been
Yes, we're almost done.
okay, good. Because
so,
I'm tired and I want to eat carbs.
When it comes to witches as lovers, they are better lovers. And when I mean witches, I mean people who've been consecrated
Sure.
to the Dark Lord.
I think
the Lady
truckers are
of
better
Light.
lovers. That's a personal opinion, though.
I've had 3 full-on priest lovers in my life.
Wow.
And I've had a few other ones. I actually don't like non-initiates very much. I
don't like people who aren't like me.
I
What a
know, no,
revelation.
it's not that. I notice when people.
I did say truckers.
I've noticed it's the only.
Just saying.
Most initiates like to be surrounded by other initiates. Do you disagree?
I agree aggressively. I think that
Exactly.
The
Now,
farther
what do you think
yeah.
about the initiate that might want to be surrounded by non-initiates?
The farther I get in my own initiation, the more I can't stand mundane people. The more they bore me.
But
I agree,
some
and that's
people
horrible, but
like
it's true.
to feel powerful, so they might prefer to surround themselves with the weak.
I prefer to surround myself with goats.
We haven't done that one. So, other than fucking goats, I'm going to say...
I don't fuck goats,
shit,
first
we
of
said
all.
the F word.
Heathenry.
What is he saying?
Oh, great question. We have a question from
We
an
have a
audience
real
member.
question. Oh.
I'm going to ask it to you for real. Did your sex life get better after you were initiated?
No, he said after he was initiated.
Okay, first of all, just take what I said. How dare you?
Did my sex life get better after I was initiated?
Yes, that's what I'm asking you. Deal with it.
Yes. It did.
Great explanation. Love that we just flushed that out completely.
My sex life became better than... he wants to know, did his and I sex life get better after
Does
he was
sex
initiated?
get better post-initiation? There's a real question. Shit.
Yes, it did get better after he was initiated.
Mainly because they probably signed that prenup. I don't know. I'm just saying. Assumptions.
prenup?
Assumptions, I know, right?
I owned half of everything before we were married.
All in good time, my little pretty.
Homegirl got that
All
shit
in
in
good
print. She knows who she is. Okay. Did my sex life get better after initiation?
Yes, it did.
It did.
You have one.
Wow. Hateful. That's rude. That's rude. I'm doing my best. First of all, like, it's hard out there
All
for
right,
a
do you have
witch.
any other questions for me, Levi? Because I asked you a whole bunch, so come on, one
You
more.
did. I didn't ask you shit today.
No, one more.
Another question?
Yes, because we've got to close soon.
What's the meaning of life, Brian?
That's not a question about sex and witchcraft.
Okay. I know, right? Okay. A real question about sex and witchcraft. Do you think that sex is an incredibly useful tool in magic, or do you think, wow, the wine has poured freely? Do you think sex is a very useful tool in witchcraft, or do you think that people use it too much, or that there's too much association with it with witchcraft because of Hollywood and whatnot? Is it something we need to be engaged in a lot? Do we need to be teaching classes in covens about sex and magic? Do we need to be using sex as a ritual tool? Or is it something that is overwrought or overused because of Hollywood and because of expectation?
I do like that line that one must be aroused to make magic work. Inspired. Inspired
Agreed,
from your
actually.
loins to your mind. From Atta to Malkuth, you're inspired. I do believe that sex in our system of witchcraft, the witchcraft system, there are many ways of working magic, and there are many ways to get to the center of the Tootsie Roll. So sex is just
Sounds sexy.
one sort of gateway to that. But I want to point out that there is magic outside of our system, and I work sex magic outside of our system, meaning that I don't actually work sex magic outside of the sacred orgy and the Great Rite within our system of magic.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
you know,
It's obviously hard as a gay man, yeah.
Yes, it's not hard at all if you know what you're doing.
I mean, in the sense in ritual. I get what you mean, though.
Do I teach my coven members how to do it? No, I don't.
Yeah, we've never had that class, thank God.
I've taught them everything that they know about witchcraft. I've not taught them everything I know about witchcraft.
God damn, Brian.
And with that,
This is my church.
we're going to go ahead and say next week we're going to do our topic on. Are we going to keep Fridays? Is that all right with you?
Friday's fine with me.
Should we do 6 or 6:30?
I don't know. We'll decide. We'll tell people on the
So
internet.
we'll tell people on the internet. We're just getting started. So we'll keep it on Fridays. Hopefully that will change if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
I've decided. I just had to pick one. Topic next week will be initiation into witchcraft.
Great. So just keeping it nice and calm.
Yes. So anyway, have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Dark Lord, watch over you.
There were covens in Europe. That's what they're called. The congregation. Covens in Europe,
That's a
in
big
America,
Rosie.
and in Australia, and they have one right here. That whole bunch. The parties
What's
with
wrong
the
with
singing
you?
and the
Who hurt
flute and
you?
the
Who made you
chanting.
this way?
Those are esbats. They're Sabbaths.
I mean,
You look a lot of
Dark
people.
Read
Dark
what they
Lord.
do, Guy. They
Are you
use
off
blood
now?
in their rituals, and the
Not
blood
yet.
that has the most power is baby's blood.
Baby's blood, children. We're getting weird with it. Thank you all for listening. We adore you, or we pretend to.
Another cherry.
Have another cherry, darling. Dark Lord, watch over all of you.
All in
There
good
were
time.
covens in Europe. That's what they're
All
called.
in good time. He doesn't care.
Oh my God, she found the buttons. She found the buttons. Shit.
That whole bunch. The
We will
parties,
see you
the
next
singing and
time.
the flute and the
Um,
chanting.
this
Those
was
are
Covendom.
esbats. They're Sabbaths. Or
I mean, don't
whatever
get
they're
It was a
called.
pleasure.
Read what they do, Guy. They
I'm gonna
use
go drink
blood
more
in their
port.
rituals, and the blood that has
Thank
the most
God we're
power is
witches.
baby's blood.
Are we still online? Stop.